Captain Lee Ji-won gripped the command chair as another massive explosion lit up the view screen, the bridge of the exploration vessel. Wanderer shook violently as shock waves from the distant battle reached them across space. Red warning lights bathed everything in an eerie glow while the ship's computers screamed alerts about radiation levels and debris fields. "Captain, we've got incoming signals from both fleets," Communications Officer Yang Nari called out, her voice tight with concern. "They're ordering us to leave the sector immediately." Lee Ji-won studied the tactical display, showing thousands of warships locked in combat. Massive Valdris dreadnoughts, each the size of a small city, unleashed streams of brilliant blue plasma that could melt asteroids. Their crystalline hulls gleamed like jewels as they absorbed hits from Nexari bioships that looked more grown than built. The organic vessels pulsed with green energy, their living hulls regenerating damage even as they fought. Commander Park Min-ho hunched over his sensor station, analyzing 3 centuries of battle data the ship's computers had automatically collected. "This is incredible, Captain. Look at these patterns." He transferred the data to the main screen, showing fleet movements over the past 50 years. Every battle follows the exact same sequence. The Valdris always attack with formation Delta 7 at 0800 hours Galactic Standard. The Nexari counter with Biofleet Gamma at 0830. Territory changes hands, then they retreat and do it all again next month. "It's like they're following a script," whispered Dr. Kim Sora from her science station. She had been studying the intercepted communications, trying to understand the alien languages. "Captain, I don't think they're trying to win anymore. They're just going through the motions." Through the view screen, they watched a Valdris battle cruiser explode in a brilliant fireball, its crew of thousands vaporized instantly. Moments later, a Nexari biocruiser writhed as Valdris plasma tore through its living hull, green ichor bleeding into space. Both sides had lost millions of lives, yet the war continued with mechanical precision. "Sir, we're being hailed," Yang Nari announced. "It's the Valdris flagship Crystal Spear." The view screen flickered, showing a tall alien with skin that looked like polished marble and eyes that glowed with inner fire. Admiral Vextar of the Valdris Empire stared at them with obvious disgust. "Human vessel, you do not belong in this sacred battlefield. Your primitive technology poses no threat, but your presence dishonors our eternal struggle. Depart immediately or face annihilation." Before Lee Ji-won could respond, another signal cut through. This time, a writhing mass of tentacles and bioluminescent patches filled the screen. The Nexari warform Zilthak spoke in harmonious tones that their translator rendered as soft-flesh creatures from the rim worlds. "This conflict predates your species' first breath. You cannot comprehend the honor and necessity of our war. Leave now or become nutrients for our ship mines." Park Min-ho's eyes widened as he studied the sensor readings. "Captain, their weapons are perfectly matched. Valdris plasma cannons produce exactly the amount of energy that Nexari bioshields can absorb without overloading. And those Nexari acid spitters, they generate precisely the type of compound that Valdris crystal armor can neutralize. After 300 years of fighting, they've evolved to counter each other perfectly," Dr. Kim Sora realized. "It's like they're locked in an eternal dance." Lee Ji-won watched another exchange of fire between the fleets. A squadron of Valdris fighters, their crystal wings catching starlight, swooped down on an Nexari biotender. The living ship's defensive tentacles swatted them away with practiced ease, while its spore launchers sent clouds of acidic death toward the attackers. The fighters' shields held perfectly, absorbing just enough damage to retreat without being destroyed. "They're not fighting to win," Lee Ji-won murmured. "They're fighting to fight." An alert chimed as more ships appeared on sensors, massive, automated. Factory ships from both sides hung at the edge of the battle zone, churning out replacement vessels with mechanical efficiency. Resources flowed in from conquered worlds, feeding the endless war machine. Entire star systems had been stripped bare to fuel this conflict. "Captain," Yang Nari said quietly, "I'm picking up civilian distress signals from the inner planets. Billions of refugees, starvation, medical emergencies. Both empires are collapsing from within, but they won't stop fighting." The Wanderer drifted through the debris field of ancient battles. Twisted metal from ships destroyed decades ago, mixed with fresh wreckage, creating a graveyard that stretched across light years. Warning beacons marked navigation hazards, where entire moons had been shattered by stray weapons fire. Commander Park Min-ho pulled up historical records. The original dispute was over mining rights to a dilithium asteroid field. That asteroid field was completely mined out 200 years ago. They're literally fighting over nothing. Lee Ji-won smiled grimly as both alien fleets continued their deadly ballet. The Valdris Empire and Nexari Coalition had become so focused on their eternal war that they'd forgotten why it started. Their civilizations were dying, their people suffering, yet the war continued with clockwork precision. Set course for the neutral zone, she ordered, and prepare a message for both fleets. What should we tell them, Captain? Yang Nari asked. Something no one has asked them in 300 years, Lee Ji-won replied, watching the endless battle rage on. We're going to ask them why they're still fighting. Dr. Kim Sora rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the holographic display floating above her workstation. For 3 weeks straight, she had been analyzing thousands of intercepted communications between the Valdris Empire and Nexari Coalition. The translation algorithms worked overtime, converting alien languages into something humans could understand. What she found made her stomach turn. Captain, you need to see this, she called across the Wanderer's science lab. Captain Lee Ji-won approached, coffee mug in hand, as Dr. Kim pulled up a collection of military dispatches spanning the last 50 years. Listen to this Valdris battle report from last month, she said, playing an audio file. The mechanical voice of their translator rendered the alien speech. Sector 7 engagement concluded successfully. Enemy forces retreated according to Standard Protocol Omega-5. Casualties, 12,147 warriors. Territory gained. Asteroid mining station V7739. Duration of engagement, 4.7 standard hours. Dr. Kim switched to another file. Now, here's a Nexari report from the same battle. The harmonious alien tones became, Biofleet Gamma completed ritual combat in Sector 7. Valdris crystal ships withdrew per ancient covenant terms. Our children who joined the Great Flow, 11th 203. Resources sacrificed to maintain balance. Mining station V7739. Combat duration 4.7 time cycles. Captain Lee frowned. They're talking about the same battle, but it sounds like they're following some kind of script. That's exactly what they're doing, Dr. Kim said, pulling up more data. Look at this communication log from 200 years ago. The display showed identical battle reports, with only the numbers changed. Same formations, same tactics, same outcomes. It's like they're actors in a play that never ends. Lieutenant Choi Hyun looked up from his tactical station across the Lepta. Captain, I've been running combat simulations based on their weapon signatures. The Valdris plasma cannons generate exactly 847.3 terawatts of energy per blast. Want to guess what the maximum absorption capacity of Nexari bioshields is? 847.3 terawatts, Captain Lee guessed. 847.2 terawatts, Choi Hyun confirmed. Close. Enough that some shots get through to cause damage, but not enough to actually destroy their ships. And those Nexari acid spitters, they produce Type C corrosive compounds that take exactly 72 hours to eat through Valdris crystal armor. Guess how often the Valdris retreat and repair their ships? Every 72 hours, Dr. Kim said, the pieces falling into place. The lab fell silent, except for the hum of computers processing alien data. Outside the viewports, distant explosions continued to light up space as the eternal war raged on. Show them the recruitment broadcasts, Communications Officer Yang Nari suggested as she entered the lab carrying data chips. I intercepted these yesterday. Dr. Kim loaded the files and suddenly the lab filled with stirring alien music. A Valdris recruitment video played, showing young crystal beings marching in perfect formation while heroic voices sang about eternal glory in the sacred war. The video cut to scenes of massive space battles, with Valdris ships firing bright plasma streams at Nexari bio-vessels. Now watch the Nexari version, Yang Nari said. The screen shifted to show writhing bioforms dancing in complex patterns, while harmonic voices chanted about joining the great flow through honorable combat. The battle scenes were identical to the Valdris video, just filmed from different angles. They're recruiting their young to die in a war none of them understand, Dr. Kim whispered. I found historical records buried in their old databases. The original conflict was over mining rights to a dilithium asteroid field in the Kepler sector. Was? Captain Lee asked. That asteroid field was completely mined out 200 years ago. It doesn't exist anymore. They're fighting over a pile of space. Just? Lieutenant Choi Hyun pulled up tactical data showing the war's progression. Look at this casualty chart. In the first 50 years, the numbers were all over the place. Sometimes the Valdris lost more, sometimes the Nexari. But for the last 150 years, he highlighted the data. The casualties are almost perfectly balanced. 51% Valdris deaths one year, 49% Nexari. The next year it flips. They're managing their losses, Captain Lee realized. This isn't a war anymore, it's population control. Dr. Kim nodded grimly. Both civilizations are trapped. Their entire economies depend on the war machine. Millions of jobs, thousands of factories, whole planets dedicated to producing weapons and ships. If the war ended tomorrow, both empires would collapse. Yang. Nari activated the ship's communication array. Captain, we're receiving standard warnings from both fleets. They want us to leave the combat zone immediately. Captain Lee stood quietly for a moment, watching the tactical display show another perfectly choreographed battle beginning. Valdris dreadnoughts moved into formation Delta 7, while Nexari biocruisers responded with counter-pattern Gamma. Young alien soldiers were about to die for reasons their leaders had forgotten centuries ago. Open a channel to both fleets, Captain Lee ordered. All frequencies, maximum power. Captain, they'll detect us immediately, Yang Nari warned. Both sides will consider that an act of aggression. Good, Captain Lee replied. It's time someone disrupted their dance. The communication array powered up, sending the Wanderer's signal across the entire battle zone. Every ship in both fleets would receive the message simultaneously. Captain Lee took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. Valdris Empire, Nexari Coalition. This is Captain Lee Ji-won of the human vessel Wanderer. I have one question. For you. She paused, letting the tension build. Why are you still fighting? The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the battle zone, weapons fire stuttered and stopped. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly hesitated. Communication channels exploded with confused chatter as fleet commanders frantically contacted their superiors. For the first time in 3 centuries, the eternal war had been interrupted by a question no one knew how to answer. Engineer Han Jisoo was elbow-deep in a plasma conduit when the distress signal came through. She wiped grease from her hands and looked at the sensor display, showing a Valdris heavy cruiser drifting helplessly in space. Its crystalline hull was cracked, leaking atmosphere and energy in brilliant blue streams. Captain, there's a damaged ship out there, she called to the bridge. Their engines are completely dead. They're requesting emergency assistance. Valdris. Or Nexari? Captain Lee asked over the comm. Valdris, but does it matter? They're going to die if someone doesn't help them. Han Jisoo was already suiting up in her engineering gear before getting permission. To her, a broken engine was a broken engine regardless of who owned it. She grabbed her toolkit and headed for the shuttle bay, ignoring the confused looks from her crewmates. 20 minutes later, she was floating in the vacuum of space outside the Valdris cruiser Crystal Fang. The alien ship was massive, its faceted hull reflecting starlight like a giant jewel. But up close, she could see the damage was severe. Microfractures spider-webbed across the crystal plating, and several engine pods had been completely blown away. "Human engineer, why do you assist us?" came a voice through her suit's communication system. The Valdris captain sounded genuinely confused. "We are enemies of your kind's allies." "Who says anyone's my ally?" Han Jisoo replied, running her scanner over the damaged power coupling. "You need help. I can give help. That's how it works." She spent the next 4 hours crawling through alien corridors, jury-rigging repairs with human equipment and Valdris crystals. The ship's crew watched her with glowing eyes, fascinated by her unconventional methods. Where Valdris engineering was precise and mathematical, Han Jisoo improvised with whatever worked. "This violates 17 safety protocols," observed the ship's chief engineer, a tall being whose crystal skin pulsed with nervous energy. "Yeah, but it works," Han Jisoo said. welding a human power cell directly into their energy grid. Sometimes you need to break the rules to fix the problem. The Crystal Fang's engines roared back to life just as a Nexari patrol appeared on sensors. Han Ji-Soo expected the Valdris ship to immediately join the battle, but instead it jumped to hyperspace without firing a shot. 3 days later, she got another distress call. This time it was a Nexari bio-frigate, whose living hull was dying from some kind of infection. The organic ship looked like a wounded whale floating in space, its bioluminescent patches flickering weakly. "Human vessel, our ship mind grows sick," came the harmonic plea. "Our healing pods cannot cure this decay. Will you render aid?" Han Ji-Soo didn't hesitate. She grabbed her medical scanner and a case of broad-spectrum antibiotics from the Wanderer's medical bay. Working inside a living ship was weird. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat, and the floors felt warm and slightly squishy under her feet. "The infection is in your power distribution network," she explained to the Nexari bioengineers. "These bacterial cultures you use for energy storage got contaminated somehow." She spent hours injecting modified human antibiotics into the ship's bloodstream-like power conduits. The Nexari crew watched in amazement as their vessel's health returned, its bioluminescent displays brightening with renewed life. "How you save ship mind," the Nexari captain said, its tentacles curling in what she had learned was a gesture of gratitude. "Yet you are allied with crystal singers who are our eternal foes." "I'm not allied with anybody," Han Ji-Soo replied. "I just fix things that are broken." Word of these incidents spread through both fleets like wildfire. Soon Han Ji-Soo found herself on a 3-way video call with some very angry military commanders. Admiral Vextar of the Valdris glared at her with fire-bright eyes, while Warform Zilthak's tentacles writhed in agitation. "Human engineer, you commit treason against the sacred war," Admiral Vextar accused. "By aiding our enemies, you dishonor the Crystal Throne. Soft-flesh creature betrays all sides," Warform Zilthak added. "Your actions poison the ancient balance." Han Ji-Soo looked at both alien commanders and shrugged. "I'm not picking sides. I'm helping people who need help. If that's treason, then I guess I'm a traitor to stupidity." The military leaders were still arguing when Commander Park Min-ho joined the conversation. He had been quietly studying both fleets' tactics for weeks, and he was getting tired of the predictable patterns. "You want to talk about betrayal?" Park Min-ho interrupted. "Let's talk about how boring your war has become. Admiral Vextar, every time you attack with Formation Delta 7, you always retreat using Pattern Alpha 2. Always. And Warform Zilthak, your counterattack is always the same Beta 6 flanking maneuver." Both alien commanders looked shocked that someone had been analyzing their tactics so openly. "Your strategies are so predictable, I could program a child's computer to fight this war," Park Min-ho continued. "Delta 7, Alpha 2, Beta 6. Rinse and repeat for 300 years. Don't you ever get bored?" Admiral Vextar's crystal skin flared with anger. "The sacred formations have served the Empire for centuries. They are blessed by the crystal prophets. And our biopatterns flow from the great minds themselves," Warform Zilthak added. "To change would be heresy." "To change would be interesting," Park Min-ho shot back. "When's the last time either of you actually surprised your enemy? When's the last time a battle didn't go exactly as planned?" The question hung in space like a challenge. Both fleet commanders realized they couldn't remember the last time anything unexpected had happened in their war. That's when things started getting chaotic. The next battle began normally, Valdris ships moving into Delta 7 formation, while Nexari biovessels prepared Beta 6 flanking. But then Han Ji-Soo's repaired Valdris cruiser did something unprecedented. Instead of following the usual retreat pattern, it stayed and fought alongside a Nexari frigate she had also helped. Both fleets watched in confusion as their carefully choreographed battle fell apart. Ships that were supposed to retreat kept fighting. Others that should have advanced held back. Alien commanders frantically consulted their tactical computers, but the machines had no protocols for dealing with this kind of chaos. "What is happening?" Admiral Vextar demanded over the comm channels. "Why do our ships not follow proper formation?" "Because," Captain Lee answered from the Wanderer, "sometimes fixing what's broken means breaking what's stuck. For the first Time in centuries, no one knew what would happen next in the eternal war. Ancient patterns crumbled as human unpredictability spread through both fleets like a virus. The perfect stalemate was finally beginning to crack, and Han Jisoo just kept fixing ships, one broken engine at a time. The attack came without warning from the edge of the galaxy. Massive black ships, sleek as daggers, and twice the size of any Valdris dreadnought, tore through hyperspace and emerged in the heart of the eternal battlefield. Captain Lee Ji-won watched in horror as the unknown vessels opened fire with weapons. That turned entire asteroid fields into glowing plasma. "Captain, I'm reading over 2,000 unknown contacts," Lieutenant Choi Hyun reported, his voice tight with fear. "They're using some kind of gravitational weapon system I've never seen before." The Krex hegemony had finally revealed themselves. For decades they had watched from the shadows as the Valdris Empire and Nexari coalition bled themselves dry in their endless war. These new invaders were nothing like the crystalline Valdris or organic Nexari. They were mechanical beings, their ships bristling with dark energy cannons that could crack planets in half. Admiral Vextar's flagship Crystal Spear was the first to respond, launching its signature plasma barrage at the nearest Krex vessel. The brilliant blue energy streams that had terrorized Nexari fleets for centuries struck the black hull and simply disappeared, absorbed by some kind of energy-eating armor. "Impossible," Admiral Vextar transmitted on all frequencies. "Our plasma cannons can melt through any known material." The Krex ship's response was devastating. A lance of pure darkness shot from its bow, striking the Crystal Spear and turning half the massive dreadnought into vapor. The rest of the ship tumbled through space, its crystal hull cracking and bleeding atmosphere. Warform Zilthak's biofleet tried their own attack, launching clouds of acidic spores that had eaten through Valdris armor for generations. The organic weapons splashed harmlessly against Krex shields that seemed to adapt and counter every attack instantly. "Our children's sacrifice means nothing to these metal demons." Zilthak's harmonious voice carried grief and rage in equal measure. "They consume our bioweapons like nutrients." Within hours, the Krex hegemony had destroyed half of both fleets. Their black ships moved through space like hungry sharks, devouring everything in their path. Valdris plasma and Nexari bioweapons, perfectly matched against each other for 3 centuries, were completely useless against this new enemy. Captain Lee Ji-won watched entire star systems fall as Krex factory ships began converting conquered worlds into more war machines. These weren't conquerors seeking territory. They were exterminators, turning living worlds into lifeless metal. "Captain, we're getting distress signals from both fleets," Communications Officer Yang Nari reported. "They're requesting emergency conference." The main view screen split to show Admiral Vextar, his crystal skin dim with exhaustion, and Warform Zilthak, whose tentacles hung limp with defeat. For the first time in 300 years, the eternal enemies were calling for help. "Human." "Captain," Admiral Vextar began, his pride clearly wounded. "Our empire faces extinction. These Krex monsters resist all our weapons." "The great flow grows dark," Zilthak added. "Our ship minds scream in terror. These metal feeders consume life itself." Captain Lee Ji-won studied the tactical data flowing across her screens. The Krex were systematically destroying both civilizations, their advanced technology countering every traditional weapon. But as she watched the battle patterns, she noticed something interesting. "Your weapons don't work against them individually," she said slowly. "But what if you used them together?" Both alien commanders stared at her in confusion. "Work together." Admiral Vextar's voice rose in outrage. "The Crystal Throne forbids alliance with biosingers." "The great minds declare cooperation with crystal singers impossible," Zilthak replied. "We are eternal enemies." "Then you'll die as eternal enemies," Captain Lee said bluntly. "Look at your casualty reports. At this rate, both your civilizations will be extinct within a week. Work together or die separately." Dr. Kim Sora leaned forward from her station. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Krex technology. Their shields are designed to counter specific weapon types, but if you hit them with plasma and bioweapons simultaneously, the shield systems would have to split their attention, Lieutenant." Choi Hyun finished. They can't perfectly counter both attacks at once. Engineer Hanjisu was already pulling up schematics on her workstation. I can modify Valdris plasma cannons to fire through Nexari bioconduits. The organic targeting systems would guide the energy weapons with living precision. The idea was radical beyond anything either empire had ever considered. Valdris technology merged with Nexari biology, crystal precision combined with organic adaptability. It violated every military doctrine both sides held sacred. "This is heresy," Admiral Vextar muttered, but his eyes were studying the tactical projections. "Heresy that might save your people," Captain Lee pointed out. The first test came 3 hours later, a joint Valdris-Nexari strike force with human coordination attacked a Krex patrol squadron. Dr. Kim Sora served as translator between the two fleets, converting Valdris mathematical precision into Nexari harmonic patterns that both sides could understand. "Crystal singers prepare plasma burst at coordinates sung by biomines," she called out over the communication channels. "Biosingers guide crystal fire with living sight." Lieutenant Choi Hyun coordinated the attack from the Wanderer, his tactical computer processing input from both alien fleets. "Valdris Squadron Alpha, fire on my mark. Nexari Bio Group Gamma, begin targeting sequence now. 3, 2, 1, fire." Brilliant blue plasma streams, guided by organic targeting tentacles, struck the Krex ships with unprecedented accuracy. The enemy shields designed to counter either energy or biological weapons flickered and failed under the combined assault. For the first time since the invasion began, Krex ships exploded. "Impossible," came the mechanical voice of a Krex commander. "Our calculations show 99.7% probability of victory against divided enemies." "Your calculations didn't account for undivided enemies," Captain Lee replied. Engineer Han Jisu's hybrid weapon systems proved devastatingly effective. Valdris plasma cannons fed power through Nexari bioconduits, creating weapons that combined crystal precision with organic adaptability. The resulting energy beams could change frequency mid-flight, adapting to whatever defenses they encountered. The joint fleet's first major victory came at the Battle of Kepler Station. 300 Valdris and Nexari ships, fighting as one force for the first time in their history, surrounded a Krex invasion fleet. Centuries of mutual combat knowledge, suddenly turned outward against a common enemy, proved overwhelming. Admiral Vextar's crystal tactics provided mathematical precision, while Warform Zilthak's bio-strategies offered organic flexibility. The combination created battle plans that no computer could predict or counter. Crystal singers hold formation, while biosingers flow around enemy flanks, Dr. Kim Sora translated between the commanders. Plasma fire provides cover for spore clouds to penetrate their shields. The Krex had expected to face two weakened enemies fighting each other. Instead, they found themselves outmatched by the combined might of two civilizations who had spent 3 centuries learning each other's every strength and weakness. The Eternal War had become the universe's most effective military training program. Krex factory ships burned in the void. Their mechanical voices transmitted a final message. Error in strategic assessment. Probability of victory recalculated. 0%. Initiating retreat protocols. The impossible had happened. The eternal enemies had become eternal allies, united by human wisdom and their own forgotten strength. The last Krex factory ship exploded in a brilliant fireball, its dark hull cracking apart like a broken egg. Captain Lee Jiwon watched from the Wanderer's bridge as Admiral Vextar and Warform Zilthak's combined fleets celebrated their impossible victory. Valdris crystal ships and Nexari bio-vessels flew in perfect formation, their weapons powering. Down for the first time in centuries. "Captain, we're receiving surrender transmissions from the remaining Krex forces," Communications Officer Yang Nari reported. "They're requesting safe passage back to their territory." "Grant it," Captain Lee ordered. "Let them go home and tell others what happens when you mess with united enemies." The defeat of the Krex hegemony had taken only 3 weeks, once the Valdris and Nexari learned to fight together. But Captain Lee knew the real challenge was just beginning. Ending a war was one thing, keeping the peace was something else entirely. 2 days later, she found herself in the strangest meeting of her life. The conference room aboard the neutral station Haven hosted representatives from 3 different species. Admiral Vextar sat at one end of the table, his crystal skin glowing with nervous energy. Warform Zilthak occupied the other end, tentacles. Curled in what she had learned was deep thought. Between them sat Captain Lee, feeling like a referee between 2 giants. "The Crystal Throne demands return of all occupied territories," Admiral Vextar declared, his fiery eyes fixed on his former enemy. "Sacred law requires restoration of pre-war boundaries." "The Great Flow speaks of ancient claims," Zilthak responded, bioluminescent patches pulsing with emotion. "Biostations seeded before Crystal Singers first touched void space," Captain Lee sighed. "Here we go again. You just saved each other's civilizations, and you're already arguing about who owns what." "These matters are sacred to our people," Admiral Vextar insisted. "Your people are dying," Captain Lee shot back. "Both your empires are collapsing from 3 centuries of constant warfare. You've got refugee camps on 100 worlds, economies in ruins, and entire generations who know nothing but fighting. Maybe it's time to try something different." She activated the holographic display showing casualty reports, economic data, and population statistics from both empires. The numbers were staggering. Billions dead, entire star systems stripped bare to feed the war machine, technological progress frozen for generations. "You don't have to go back to war," she said quietly. "You've proven you're stronger together. Why throw that away?" Warform Zilthak's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. Cooperation brings victory against metal feeders, but how to maintain peace without sacred conflict? "Competition," Commander Park Minho suggested, as he entered the room carrying datapads. "You've been competing through destruction for 300 years. What if you competed through creation instead?" Over the next several hours, they hammered out the framework for something unprecedented: the Tri-Alliance. Instead of fighting each other, the Valdris and Nexari would compete in exploration, scientific research, and technological development. Humans would serve as neutral mediators and coordinators. Dr. Kim Sora designed the cultural exchange programs, starting with simple things like student exchanges and joint research projects. The first group of young Valdris crystal singers to visit a Nexari bioworld was small, just 50 volunteers. But watching them work alongside Nexari bioengineers to heal damaged ecosystems was incredible. "They're natural partners," Dr. Kim observed as she watched Valdris mathematical precision combine with Nexari organic intuition. "Crystal tech provides the framework, biotech provides the adaptability. Together, they can solve problems neither could handle alone." Engineer Han Jisoo oversaw the joint technology projects, and her workshop became a miracle factory. Valdris engineers brought their crystalline computers that could calculate faster than anything humans had ever built. Nexari bioengineers contributed living machines that could grow, adapt, and repair themselves. "Look at this," Han Jisoo said excitedly, showing Captain Lee a device that looked like a crystal flower. "It's a Valdris quantum processor, grown through Nexari bioscaffolding. It can evolve its own programming to solve new problems." The technology sharing went both ways. Nexari bioships equipped with Valdris shield generators became nearly indestructible. Explorers, Valdris crystal ships integrated with Nexari healing systems, could repair battle damage in hours instead of months. But the real breakthrough came 6 months later, during the first joint military exercise. Instead of the rigid formations both sides had used for centuries, the combined fleet moved like a living organism. Valdris ships provided the skeleton structure, while Nexari vessels flowed around them like muscle and sinew. "It's beautiful," Lieutenant Choi Hyun whispered as they watched the exercise from the Wanderer. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect harmony, crystal and biotech, working as one organism. The galaxy watched in amazement as former battlefields became construction sites. The massive shipyards that had churned out weapons of war for centuries were converted to build exploration vessels, research stations, and mobile habitats for refugees. Admiral Vextar and Warform Zilthak found themselves working side by side, planning joint expeditions to explore unknown regions of space. Their first collaborative mission discovered 3 new habitable worlds, and a nebula full of rare crystals that could revolutionize energy production. Crystal singers bring order to chaos, Zilthak observed during one planning session. Biosingers bring life to emptiness. Together we bring hope to darkness. The ancient prophets spoke of this, Admiral Vextar admitted. They said the crystal throne would find its perfect reflection among the stars. Perhaps they meant the great flow all along. Trade relationships flourished between the former enemies. Valdris crystal technology helped Nexari bioworlds develop more efficient ecosystems. Nexari healing compounds extended Valdris lifespans and improved their crystal-growing processes. Both civilizations experienced economic booms unlike anything in their recorded history. Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of Haven Station 1 year after the Krex invasion, watching the construction of the first joint Valdris Nexari city. Crystal spires grew like flowers from bioengineered soil, while living buildings pulsed with crystalline light. Children from both species played together in parks, where crystal trees provided shelter for bioluminescent gardens. "It's incredible," young Nari said, joining her at the viewport. "Who would have thought a 300-year war could end with a question?" Captain Lee smiled, remembering that first simple broadcast. "Why are you still fighting?" Sometimes the most profound changes came from the simplest questions. Commander Park Minho approached with a data pad, showing the latest reports. "Captain, the Galactic Council wants to meet with you. Apparently 3 other long-running conflicts have requested human mediation." "More eternal wars?" Captain Lee asked. "The Helix Syndicate and the Void clans have been fighting for 2 centuries. The Crystal Hives and the Metal Swarms have been locked in combat for even longer. They all want to know the secret of ending unwinnable wars." Captain Lee looked out at the peaceful construction site where former enemies built their shared future. "Tell them the secret isn't ending wars, it's transforming them. Sometimes you don't need to stop the fight, you just need to change what they're fighting for." As the Wanderer prepared to depart for new frontiers, Captain Lee took one last look at the Valdris Nexari systems. The Eternal War was truly over, replaced by eternal cooperation. They had accomplished something no mediator, no treaty, no outside force had ever managed. They had turned enemies into family by asking one simple question: "Why are you still fighting?" The answer, it turned out, was that they didn't have to be. The end